We have power feed on the knee. All right. So what we got going on is a involved installation. This is probably the hardest access to install using a power feed like this. Now, I changed the polarity on mine based on recommendations from my supplier. And I guess this tag is going to change, and he's going to get me another one where it's up and down, but the polarity is set per the recommendation of my servo provider. Now, in the instructions, it says you need a lathe. That's like the first thing it says. And the reason being is that there is a shaft extension where this end goes into your elevating shaft, which is the shaft of the knee. It goes to the pinion in there. It's a bevel gear. And that needs to be concentric within 2 thou of the OD of that elevating shaft. So a lathe, that's the reason. Now, all of these are good recommendations. I used pretty much everything that they said here. The grease is going to be a Teflon based grease, and that's for the pinion elevating shaft. And I used a lithium based, so you'll see that. And for all of the drills and taps, I recommend you also get a bottoming tap version. Now I'm going to leave links below to all of this. This is going to be a long video. It's a long process, and I'm showing every step. This is everything that comes in the kit. Okay, so we're going to basically install all of it. Now, supplemental things to this that I recommend you get. It's not critical. It just helped me a lot. I don't really know how else you would do it. It's a V-block. Now, if you notice, this has like a bronze end. See that there? That is for when you clamp the elevating shaft, because you have to drill out a pin. And I just used the mill to drill it out. So use that. I got some moly and some rust inhibitor because that shaft is probably going to look nasty. I'm going to use a 140 on the knee, but to do that I need to switch out these 2 pins. So okay, for this needs to be here. Set that in. Let me take you in for a closer look of what I did. So I switched the green and the red. Looks like. Let's get something to just finish off pieces. Got it. Whew. I was involved for no reason. Allen key. Let's see which one will work. Nope. Yep. Yummy. I just pressed out or removed this bearing, just more of an alignment bearing, so that's that. And then this pops out after you remove the set screw that's in here. And there's a key that allows this to clock how it needs to clock properly. So I just pressed these two out and then put the remaining in the lathe. So right now I'm just looking to see how much we have to play with stuff to get it to run true. This is a half dial indicator, and right now we're running dead true to where we have to be. It's definitely less than 5/10. So we're good to move on. Now this blue line indicates the depth of this extension. That'll be important because this portion we have to drill a hole through both. And there's a 1/8 drill, and there's a pin that has to go through the whole assembly. This pin is about 5 thou bigger than this 1/8 drill. All right, we're ready to drill this out. So I went here, did the split function, divided by 2, got the middle, went off this surface, included the size of my drill bit after zeroing this, and for me, it wasn't exactly 750 or 3/4. It's a little less, so did the math and got the center. Now, very important, do not forget to put your extension back in so that you can drill through both. Okay, so the reason why we went to here as the middle, it's the middle of this. All right, we're about ready to start putting this back together, but not really. So, need some lubes. Protect this and all of the shiny bits. So, for the bearing, I'm just gonna use some extreme pressure lube, number 3. For the shaft, I'm gonna use some blue moly, just thin coats just to help protect it. I don't want a thick buildup because then that's when chips stick to it. And for the gear, I'm gonna use some red and tacky. It's my go-to basically. All right, I did the mock-up and noticed that this was interfering. I think that this has to come out and the power feed has to sit on this bearing housing. So I have the shaft back out the machine, and I need to get this off. So this locks up the shaft better. I don't have the C spanner wrench. I only have this one, which is a pin style. It takes off the cap off the head for the spindle, for the quill area. And I'm gonna try and use this. I can't get enough force. So I'm gonna, this in a hammer. Oh, okay. Huh. That's all it needed. Took out the whole shaft for just that little extra. Okay, so I got the shaft back in. I just put on these 2 bolts in case I had to take this back out. But this is what we took off. The reason we took this off is because the bevel gear will fit well. Let me just show you. This bevel gear is going to replace this nut. So we had to first extend this. This key is for this bevel gear. Now, this key is important for the reasons that you don't want to put it in yet without adjusting this, because then you won't be able to adjust it properly. You won't get the shims on if you need more. Here's my buffer. We're behind the machine. I used the clutch to put a little space. So what I did was I locked the knee, and that is the most travel it'll have. And then I put that extra space so I can come in behind it and grab it. And from what I understand and what I see, it's all a matter of preference as to how you feel. Now, this feels good to me, being in this position. Okay, I'm picking the hole that I'm in now. Basically, these 2 top holes above the center line of the shaft. So let's get a hammer. Lost my hammer. Got to find my hammer. When you're using this, I find that it's best to put a little pressure going that way in on it so it doesn't bounce. So you can just keep tapping. Okay, that should be a good arc. Now I'm gonna drill and tap the hole. Take it back, well, take it out, drill and tap it, put it back in, tighten it, and then drill and tap the next hole. So it's a little bit of a process. Okay, well, I didn't talk about how deep does this hole have to be. Now, this screw is a 1-inch quarter 20. So the thickness of the flange that the power feed mounts is mounting, that's about 700 thousandths. The depth you have here before you hit the bearing housing, or the bearing itself, is about, I want to say about the same 700 thousandths. So you only need to go in terms of depth between, I want to say 400 or so thousandths, and then use if you want to go exactly, then you would have to use a taper tap and then follow it up with a bottoming tap. All right, so I put tape on mine so that I know how deep I can go. It kind of helps with not breaking taps in blind holes. I'm also going to dip it in some cutting fluid, dealer's choice. Now we can tap that hole. first off, we have to punch the hole. We have it in a comfortable position, and that'll be where it is. Okay, I think that's royally tapped. Okay, now we remove everything and do it again. Now you might be tempted to drill this out here, and you could probably get away with it, but this, I don't want any chips getting in here, so safer to just remove. Unless, you know, you cover this up well, you could probably use this as a guide if you don't have a drill or tap follower. And here's our hole. So that's what we're gonna do. This will be a little pain to get to for tapping, but don't have much of a choice. Let's see what we could do there. It'll clear a little. Yeah. Okay, so I have my tap guide, and this is millimeters, so about 5.5 or number 7 will work, or you can just buy it in imperial. And once we get the hole, that way, this way, I can go straight in. Now the tape represents the depth I want to go plus the height of this gauge or this guide. I am using cutting fluid with this. I just dip it in the cutting fluid, and that's what I do. Now normally you want to back out, go in, but you know, you could get a feel for it, and this is aluminum, so it's behaving pretty good. And drop my little handle thingy. So I'm gonna use some of this. Smells nice. Especially in the key slot and on the threads. These threads won't be used again, but just want to make sure they don't corrode. All right, so let's put this thing together. So I put on this bottom screw, so all three is now tightened up. We have our 2 1/4-20 bolts. Now I'm gonna start with this bushing, and there's a counter bore. It has to go on the threads side. So it's gonna cover up the threads. I did have to stone this a little for it to clear. So that's that. And now the unit. Now, one thing about the unit, I greased, and probably excessively, but it will not be an issue, I don't think. So, carefully slide this on. I just hold up on it a little. All right. All right, so we're good. All right, so here's the interesting part. We have to shim it. Now, the shims that they give you, there's an assortment of thicknesses ranging from about 14 thousandths all the way up to about 25 thousandths. So this thickness, which is 25 thousandths, is the limit of your backlash. So how do we measure that? If you look on H&W's videos, they basically say, put this on here. You hear that grinding? Add shims until you don't. That's one way. And they recommend, they used, I don't want to say recommended, but they used about 2. So I'm going to start off with 2. But there is a textbook way. The textbook way is what I'm going to show you here. So I still hear grinding. I'm going to do maybe, these are 2 15 thousandths shim. We'll do 125 and 115. Now I'm gonna try 2 of these. I don't hear anything. That's just the gears working. Let's see if I had another one, what'll happen. See, that's horrible. I don't like that at all. So, well, it's about 2. All right. So let's do the textbook way now, or the way that's in the actual instructions. Now, you can't see it, but there's a little set screw under. Let me show you. There's a set screw right there. We're going to tighten that without the key in, and what's going to happen is that this gear down here is going to get locked. Now the backlash is, if I turned it clockwise and put pressure and then turn it counterclockwise, that click, that is the backlash. That distance it went from here to here is the backlash. We can measure that with the scale. I'm putting the flat end on the radius so I get more points of contact, but I'm going to draw a line on the housing and the bevel gear itself. The manual says between 15 and 25 thousandths. So I have a feeler gauge. Can you see my red line? No. See that little thing right there? That's the top of it. So my feeler gauge covers it, which it does. I know I'm basically at the limit. So let's loosen this and turn it on. See how it sounds. All right, so that's done. It's not that bad. All right, so for the key, there's a special key. This key is for this thing, the bevel gear, and this key is for the wheel or the clutch, whichever one you want to put in. All right. That looks good. So we're all set here. Now we just need our dial. Cleaned up the dial. And now we have to check for this. Now, you hear that? that's rubbing. So there is shims that are sized for this as well. I'm gonna go off the same amount that's on my X and Y. So that's good. You don't want too much. You don't want any more than 5 thou per the manual of space or gap between these two. So they give you a crappy looking, no offense, but crappy looking nut. This is the Bridgeport nut. I'm going to use this. It feels heavier. I like the knurl pattern more. All right, so this is how it all looks together, and I like it. Handle feels good. Gap is all right. And let's hear how it sounds. All right, no grinding. In is down. And down goes faster than up, obviously, gravity. And the last bit is really about the limit switch and rail placement. This is how I mounted mine. I believe this is 5/16 socket head cap screws. And you have to just drill and tap some holes. I think this is 1028 or something. I don't remember, but you know, the manual, link below. And that's how that looks. All right, so be safe, have a good one, see ya.